Your day moves fast. Your news should too. That's why there's a new and improved Wish TV app bringing you more local news, breaking alerts, live streaming, weather forecasts, radar, and Indiana sports all in one place. Customize your news feed to see the stories that matter most to you and get the information you need when you need it. Download the new and improved Wish TV app today on iOS or Android and take News 8 with you everywhere.
Welcome to Daddy Issues. Conversations with Dads. A podcast from Fathers and Families Center of Indianapolis, Indiana. Hey, welcome in everyone. It is Daddy Issues. Jason Acquisto here and Larry Smith, the CEO and President of Fathers and Families Center of Indianapolis. How you doing, Larry?
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
We are here to be encouraging and just kind of keep the conversation going about how to be the best dad and parent we can be. With us today is a great guest. We are looking forward to this conversation with Annettra Jones. Annettra is a pastor here in Indiana in Fort Wayne. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for having me today. It's an honor to be here, and I look forward to our conversation.
And tell us where you serve and what your position is now.
Yeah, I currently serve as the senior pastor of Faith United Methodist Church here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And so I've been here for almost 2 years, serving right in the inner city and having a good time.
Well, why don't we dive right in and just start with the hard question? You know, as two dads in this conversation and yourself as a mother, as we raise our children and the times that we're living in right now in America, what are some of the biggest challenges you see facing families in America?
Yeah, I would say that what I am seeing right now is some of the biggest challenges are exhaustion, disconnection, and fear. Many families, many parents are just exhausted because they are overworking to make ends meet, even in households where there are two parents in the household. You're finding that they're overworking. There's a lack of access to mental health. So a lot of people right now a lot of parents are experiencing mental health challenges right along with their children. And so one of the things that we're doing at Faith is we are working to become a trauma-informed ministry because many of the people coming through our doors, members, visitors, and we do a lot of community work. So we have a community dinner that's now every Thursday. So we get people from off the streets and from the community that are not a part of our Sunday morning or regular church activities. But on Thursdays, we have like a whole nother congregation. These are people that come primarily for the meal. But for us, we're their church family, but we're still finding that people are struggling financially. People are overall exhausted. I have been doing a lot of preaching about rest and telling parents that right now, maybe one of the most radical things that you can do is take a nap. Is to take a nap. That rest and naps are holy. Take a nap. You can't figure everything out. You can't, there are some things I believe that God will speak to us in our dreams. And so people are exhausted. I'm seeing that. I'm seeing it on their faces. They're weary. Then there's also the disconnection, right? Because along with the exhaustion that parents are experiencing, we're disconnected from our kids. And so social media, electronics are raising our kids. Netflix is raising our kids. YouTube is raising our kids, right? And so families are disconnected right now. And so right now, I'm just talking about before we even get to all the stuff happening in the world, in the household, there is exhaustion, there's disconnection. And then amongst families that are that may have folks in their family that are not citizens, right? That don't have their full citizenship or have lost jobs. We have a couple of families that, that work for the VA. And so they get the emails from Doge, right? That are saying that they got to send the 5 things every week that they are accomplishing to justify their position. And so you have parents that are in fear, right, of losing their jobs. Exhaustion, disconnection, fear. People are in survival mode right now. And what I am seeing is that when the folks that are in survival mode, they're also disconnected from the bigger things that are happening in the world. So that they don't know, they're not paying attention to Gaza being bombed. They're not paying attention to what's happening in politics because right now they're trying to figure out how to get some food on the table. They're trying to figure out how they're going to rob Peter to pay Paul. They're trying to figure out uh, how to keep the water on, right? And so that's some of the things that I am currently seeing as a pastor in my particular context.
Larry, what are your thoughts when you hear her talk about exhaustion and the disconnection of families?
Well, certainly all of that resonates with me. I'm seeing the same thing, the same things as well, and frankly, to be transparent, experiencing some as well. I think it really just speaks to the time that we are in, and it's those of us who grew up in particular in the black church would say that the enemy is busy, and that's in addition to just the the sort of the normal issues of life. I mean, we all have our trials and tribulations, our struggles, but for I think a variety of reasons, we are in a particular historical moment that has some spiritual implications, but also some practical, physical, financial, emotional, and mental implications as well. So I think that Pastor Jones is spot on.
Well, that is so true. And especially interesting the way you wrap that up, because in addition to the exhaustion, in addition to the disconnection, so many of us don't have the luxury of even looking at the big picture because we're in the moment. We are trying to get the kids to school. We're trying to get dinner on the table. We're trying to get the bills paid, the car fixed, moving moment to moment. And that's where we're stuck with what's right in front of us.
It's constant survival mode, right? And people are experiencing, emotional, financial, and even spiritual exhaustion. There was a father, that went viral. I don't know if you all saw it just this past week, where he had a job interview. And so he took his children and he took them to McDonald's and left them at the McDonald's, the playground, the indoor playground, so they could play while he went to the job interview real quick. And he was incarcerated. And so one of the football players, I don't know, Anthony Brown, Antonio Brown, I don't football, basketball, one of them, just raised like $40,000 in one day for this father. And so while many people are shaming the father, it's like, well, darn if he does and darn if he doesn't, right? So we'll talk about the man. We'll talk about the man if he doesn't have a job, right? And then for him trying to go get a job, he leaves his children, but he takes them to what he believes is a safe place. But what is this telling us is there's a lack of a village. Obviously, he does not have a village.
Right.
There's no support.
Yeah. So who is my neighbor? That's when we start thinking about who is my neighbor, right? And that'll preach.
Yeah.
Let's keep going. What does justice, social justice, mean to you as a parent?
Trying to think about what that means to me as a parent. Mommy's busy right now. Okay.
Oh, look at this. She's doing parenting right now on the podcast. There's a live look in at mom in action.
So, justice, well, like my children, they just got in. They're a part of a program here called Unity Performing Arts Foundation. I look at this program that has my children are in choir. Tonight they had public speaking. Tomorrow my daughter will have dance. Saturday and Sunday they'll have choir. Just this past weekend they were at a leadership development camp, and you know, justice in this sense looks like, I think part of what this program is doing is justice because the work is transformational. It's not necessarily charity, right? It's the work of transformation, and it's not just a mentoring program and a program that is dedicated to the arts. But when my son is not doing what he's supposed to do, I can send a text message to the men in this program, and all of a sudden the fear of God enters him, right? Because there's this program where they have these tenets of respect and respecting adults, and there's men that will step in and have these loving moments with my son when needed, right? Because as mothers, I think sometimes we're a little too soft on our boys. But I look at the work that this program does as justice. But justice for me is about equity. Justice for me is about the relationship. It's to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. It's about having this vertical and a horizontal relationship. When justice is happening, there is a connection with God and there is a connection with humanity. We are connected to one another. We are connected to the earth. There is equity. I was talking last night with my church. We're currently reading The Cross and the Lynching Tree by James Cone.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that I'm saying about justice is when we look around, things don't have to be this way. If justice was happening because everybody would just do if we would just do these three things: love God, love our neighbors, and love ourselves, nobody would be starving. There wouldn't be a lack of access to water. People wouldn't be sleeping in cars and under bridges while we have homes and hotels and places that have vacancy. People would not be dying because of hypothermia, right? While we have there's places all over that have vacancies. If we were doing justice is just love.
Yeah.
It's just love.
Amen.
That's what justice is. What does justice look like for me as a parent? It looks like love. It looks like me going to therapy so that I don't transfer my trauma onto my children, right? Because that's justice. Another part of justice is there being access to enough therapists. There being access to therapy. There's not enough access to therapy. And so what happens between parents and children? You transfer trauma. You can only transfer what you got. If you have not received healing yourself, you transfer trauma to your children. So we continue to have intergenerational trauma. Justice is love flowing, it's healing flowing, it's equity flowing, equality flowing, but it's love. Cornel West says justice is what love looks like in public. And so as a parent, it is imperative for justice to flow through me and to my children, that they understand what homophobia is, that they understand what ableism is, that I have very elementary conversations with them like, hey, if there's someone at your school that's different and everyone else is talking about them, you should be the person to go sit with them and talk to them. Justice looks like when my 25-year-old was in high school and they were having practice after school for the ACTs coming up. So they bought pizza for the kids. And when my daughter notices that the pizza was pepperoni and sausage, that a Christian child would march to the principal's office and ask, why isn't there veggie or cheese pizza for her Muslim friends? That's justice. This is the ways in which parents can do justice, and that is that we have to teach our children, because social media is teaching them how to laugh and how to, social media is making a mockery of people, right? We have to do the teaching because it's not happening in the schools. And one of the most radical things that the churches can do right now is to build libraries of banned books, and to continue to have teaching moments in the church. I mean, I just learned last week that my children don't know who Emmett Till is, right? And that's because I was preparing for a chapter 2 or 3 in the cross and the lynching tree, right? The chapter that speaks of Emmett Till. So as I'm preparing and I'm looking for a documentary and I'm picking the kids up from school and I'm like, hey, do y'all know who Emmett Till is? They said, who?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, where would I expect for them to learn? Who was going to
Who's
teach
going to
them if
teach
I
them
didn't
that?
teach?
And who's going to teach them that? Public school?
We're not in the black church. We're in the United Methodist
Right.
Church. So who was going to teach them if I didn't teach them?
Pastor, I want to pull out one thing that you said, and that is that you can only pass on what you have. And then I want to volley that over to Larry in terms of the men that you work with and the dads that you help, and how you are helping to instill things into men that they might not have gotten from their pops. So how can we reverse that trend and give them a better chance?
Yeah, great question. Certainly appreciate that. So we're best known for our Strong Fathers program, and in it, we focus on what we call the 4 Ps. We want to help the men to become a better person, a better parent, a better partner, a better provider. So a better person, literally, what does it mean to be a man in the 21st century? And so we have a lot of workshops wherein we talk about the general topic is going from maleness to manhood. Number 2, a better parent. The vast majority of the men we serve, like me, grew up in a home in which their father was not present, at least full-time. Doesn't necessarily mean they're bad fathers. It simply means they didn't have a full-time role model. So we talk about, well, what does it mean to be a father? The expectations that are changing on a daily basis. Thirdly, partner. Most of the men we serve are either divorced or were never married to their children's mother or mothers. And so we talk a lot about co-parenting, even if you're no longer romantically involved, right? The importance of co-parenting. This is a partnership. We talk a lot about child support. Why do we pay child support? No, she's not taking your money and getting her hair and nails done and all that. By the way, the money that you're giving her is not covering the cost of that child anyway.
Amen. Glory to God. Let's run that clip back. AI, grab that clip.
And then, finally, provider. As Jason knows, the average income of the men we serve is just $11,000 annually. Annually. Right, so that's the P. They want to start with that P, but we leave that for the end. Very specifically, we do want each and every man to, once they leave the program, to have a job or a career with what we refer to as a family-sustaining wage. But we have to deal with all the other issues before we get there. If you just say, "Hey, you're either poor or you're returning from incarceration," we're just going to give you a job. That's not going to solve those other issues, the mental, emotional trauma that they're trying to overcome from their childhood and even into adulthood. And Jason's heard me say this before, but one of my favorite quotes of all time is from Frederick Douglass. It is easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men. And so we're dealing with a lot of broken men. And so, our mission statement is to equip fathers and empower families so that children thrive. Children are ultimately the audience that we're trying to go after. We're trying to break cycles. We do that by working with the fathers. And there are ways to do it, other ways to do it, but our way is by working with fathers.
That is so good, Larry. That is great work, and I pray that program gets replicated across the country because it is so needed. Those 4 Ps are important, and one of the conversations I've had with, like my son's father is. The child support comes in consistently because, it's automatic through his work, but sometimes, it's not money that I need. It's take something off of my to-do list, teaching fathers the various ways in which they can provide support, I think is important because, again, as single moms, many times, we're exhausted. So even as a pastor, someone who is, now middle class, but still, I would do anything to have an extra pickup from school, or someone else to go on the field trip with the kids, or show up with the snacks for a sports, or fill out the registration form. Like, take something off of the to-do list.
Hmm.
Money's not always the issue. It's that as mothers, we have to think about everything. We don't get to just pay child support.
Amen.
We have to think about everything. The uniform, getting them up, getting them to school, the toilet paper, the soap, the dishwashing liquid. Like, literally, we have to think about everything and also go to work
Amen.
and also try to be there for the children. Um, and so I think these four P's are amazing, and teaching fathers how to better show up. That's just
Yeah.
phenomenal work. And so I pray that this program gets replicated.
This is Daddy Issues, and we'll be right back. This is Daddy Issues. It's Jason and Larry and Pastor Annettra Jones, our guest this episode. Pastor, I was thinking about, all the things we have to do, all the things every day we do. Where do you fit in naps? The sacrament of napping, taking care of yourself, getting enough rest.
Oh, that sounds heavenly.
Right?
All of
That's
it.
godly. Let's be like Jesus, right? Let's drink some wine, call out religious hypocrites, and take a nap. Take a nap on a boat.
Yeah. There is a book, Rest is Resistance, by Trisha Hersey, called The Nap Bishop. And she talks about how rest is a form of resistance, because it disrupts and it pushes back against capitalism and white supremacy, that tells us that we ought to always be producing, that our bodies are workhorses, and we should always be producing. And if you're resting, you're lazy. And so I think that there is a new generation, that we are moving away from the saying of, I'll sleep when I die. No, I'm going to be rested, because if I'm not rested, I can't be my best self for my children. I can't be my best self for my
Right.
congregation. If I'm not rested, I don't have the energy, the time, the capacity to check on what's happening in larger society, right? Um, and so I am encouraging naps.
Yeah. And is that even more so true for a black person, a person of color in this country, with the history of what has happened in the black experience? Is that more true and a bigger challenge?
Absolutely. And there is a book by Joy DeGruy, Post Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And in that book, she talks about, the black population, us having this multi generational trauma that is just passed down from one generation to the next, where we've experienced all this oppression and this institutionalized racism, and it's almost ingrained in us that our value and our worth comes from what we produce. And so part of the work that I am doing with my brand, Faithfully Becoming, which is behind me, is I am working on inspiring and empowering women to love themselves radically, to expose trauma, our childhood and generational trauma, and to teach the different ways that trauma shows up in our lives as adults, and impacts our relationships. And I encourage therapy 1000%, and I know that there are not enough black therapists. And so I'm seeking how I can go back to school and get either a PhD or another master's, so that I can do that work, of also becoming a therapist, because I believe that more of our pastors need to be trauma informed. When it comes to African Americans, I think that we have to continue to instill what Dr. Martin Luther King called somebodyness, right? That we need to know that we are somebody because we too are created in the very image of God, and our mistakes, whatever mistakes we've made, wherever we come from, whatever trauma we have, right? Whatever proclivities we have, that it doesn't discount who we are. And one of my favorite sayings that I'm gonna keep saying is trauma don't get to have the final say. Trauma does not get to have the final say, and that's why it has to be exposed, because too many people are thinking that trauma is part of their identity, like it is who they are, or we think that where we come from is who we are. We don't have we're not necessarily a product of our environment, right? Like I don't have to, I can be, but I don't have to be. I can take the agency to say, I change my mind. That whatever generational curses have been a part of my family, I change my mind and I say that they stop with me. I say that I'm about to steer this boat in another direction. Because let me tell you something that y'all don't know about me. All right, let's just go there. Let's go there since we're here and we're having a good time. I am a former convicted felon. I caught a drug trafficking felony. I started selling dope at age 13 because my father was incarcerated. My mother was caught up in the crack epidemic in California. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, raised in Salinas, California. So I grew up in a home without a father. So and then we relocated back to Louisville, Kentucky. So age 16, I catch a felony, a drug trafficking felony. I was also a 10th grade dropout. I have a GED. Okay, I have a GED, 10th grade dropout, felony at 16, another felony at 17, another felony at age 25. So for the fathers that may be listening, I understand the struggle of going through adulthood and having to check that box. And I understand the struggle of knowing that you are brilliant and there's brilliance inside of you, because come on now, you got to think like a CEO to sell dope. If you sold dope, you got all type of skills that are transferable into the work world, right? Into the world, but many times you're held back because you got to check that box. So you find yourself, you're working in factories or whatnot. But let me say that trauma doesn't get the final say, and neither does that felony, because there comes a time, right, where it may say within 7 years, within 10 years. And you don't have to check the box, and you at least get an opportunity to be in front of a person, and you get to sell yourself, right? You get to present yourself. And so I am a former convicted felon. My oldest sister went to federal penitentiary, served 16 and a half years in federal penitentiary for drug trafficking. My middle sister was murdered in Louisville, Kentucky. She died in 2009. It was in 2009 at her funeral that I stood up and I declared, I am going to serve God or die trying. I knew nothing but the streets. I knew nothing but selling dope. I woke up every day and I smoked weed. I come from a weed smoking family. I got aunties 60, 70 years old right now, still smoke weed, right? I come from a weed smoking family. I come from a family where we had more convicted felons than we did high school graduates, right? We knew more about where the penitentiaries are and how you get the care bag, what to put in the care bag when they first get there, how to navigate the systems. Grew up knowing all about that. But there came a point in my life where I had to make a decision. And this is what I want to say to those who are listening, is that you get to make a decision for your life and to do something different. And when you do, it not only changes your life, but it changes your kids' life. Because of my decision, My kids, they suburban kids. Now my 25-year-old, she was there through the struggle. She knows, she's now my BFF. These youngest two, they only know their mom is a pastor. They only know church. They know nothing about the struggle. Again, parents, we can only give our children what we have.
Right.
And you have the power to decide that you want something different. I began to ask questions. Who said because I was born poor, I got to die poor? Who said because no one else has been a homeowner or no one else has graduated from college, that has to be my story too? I get to change. How do you change? Faith comes by hearing, and hearing the word of God. You got to change what you're listening to. There was a season I had to turn off rap music, and I had to turn on sermons. I had to change and rewire my thinking and my mind. When I went to seminary, I was still a convicted felon. Thank God for Louisville Seminary that gave me a chance, that gave me an opportunity to explain why I still deserved a chance to be there and to still receive a 100% scholarship. And when I graduated, this 10th grade dropout with a GED from the housing projects of Louisville, Kentucky, received 2 of the 6 awards that were given out to the entire graduating class. And so what am I saying to the fathers? Some of you all know that there is brilliance on the inside of you. And you may not have had the best start in life. The past is what it is. You can't change it. You got some trauma. But guess what? You know what I've had to tell the trauma? Baby, you just got to come with me because we're giving God a yes. Imposter syndrome, you just got to come with me. ADHD, you just got to come with me. Anxiety and depression, you just got to come with me. We're just going to give God a yes. We're going to see what happens. Larry, we're going to run on and see what the end's going to be.
That's right. That's right.
We're going to run on and we're going to see what the end is going to be. And there is a God that gives us beauty for ashes. There is a God that turns our mourning into dancing. There is a God that can turn our pain and that can still give us joy.
So glad.
There is a God. So
glad to hear
sorry,
you.
y'all didn't bring me here to
That's
preach.
all right. No, that's all right. So glad to hear you quote Psalm 30 for the uninitiated. Every funeral that you go to, someone's going to say, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning." But and that's true. But if you keep reading, King James Version, "Thou hast turned for me my joy, my mourning, my sadness, my sorrow into dancing." So if you keep reading, that's what Psalm 30 says. But you hardly ever hear that quoted at funerals. Yeah, so I love that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Bring all the stuff that you carry, all your baggage, ADHD, dysfunction, anything. Bring it.
Because you can't wait till you're fully healed to go forward and decide, right? Because healing it's a lifelong journey. It is a lifelong journey. And I just know that, God has given all of us gifts. Everyone has gifts. And for many Black folks, especially, those who have been oppressed, or if you grew up in the hood, you don't know necessarily what your gift is, even if you may be operating in it. And, you might be selling dope or doing something else with your gift. But one of the things I want to do, my mission is to make sure that every person understands that they are gifted. And I don't care what your past is. I don't care where you come from. I don't care how bad you think your story is. We can trade stories all day long. I got them. Right? But something happens when you will dare to identify, stir up your gift and use it. And I preached about this last Sunday. And what we're seeing now with all of the injustice that's happening, is they want to keep us so distracted, so overwhelmed, and so exhausted that we don't even have time to operate in our gifts. We don't have time to aim for the sun, the stars, the moons, to aim for greatness because we're so exhausted just trying to survive the day. And so, one of the challenges also for families right now is how do we help people to get out of survival mode? And it's more than just finances, right? The first P was going from maleness to manhood. That's a shift in thinking. That's a shift in how one views themselves, a shift in how one views the world. And I think that's one of our challenges is getting people to change, to shift. Number one, how they see themselves. If we see ourselves as ants, if we see ourselves as broken, we'll operate as such. I want to get people to hold intention. Yes, you got some brokenness, but you know what? There's so much beauty there too, right? You got some faults and you may have failed, but you're fabulous all at the same time. And so let's focus on the positive. I'm a prisoner of hope. I am a prisoner of hope. I believe that there's light at the end of the tunnel. Trauma doesn't get the last say. Pain doesn't get the last say.
Amen.
Trump will not get the last say. And any other person in power will not get the last say. The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our Lord
Stands forever.
shall stand forever. Yeah.
Here on a weeknight, on a school night, on a podcast, looking at a computer screen and just getting blessed.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. It comes from you speaking truth to power. So thank you, Pastor.
You know, again, justice being rooted in love. And for all the parents, one of the best things that we can do is heal our own trauma so that we do not continue to pass trauma on to our kids. We cannot give them what we do not have. And so how do we think like that faith can play a role in raising our children? And again, I think it is teaching our children how to love as we are healing ourselves through therapy, you know, embodying those principles, the things that we're learning in therapy, having patience with our children, making sure they understand, you know, that they're more than a GPA. They're more than perfect attendance and all of those things. Making sure that we are speaking kind to our children because, you know, I was thinking about this the other day and I feel like I need to preach a sermon or do something maybe on my own YouTube page that I've started. There's a saying, you know, sticks and stones may break my bones and words will never hurt. Well, that's a lie.
It is.
We know that's a lie because some of us, the pain from words spoken is still having a traumatic effect on so many people. And so I think as parents, making sure that we are affirming our children, that we're calling out their gifts, that we're being kind, that we are listening, that we're making time for them. Even as a mother, I have to be very intentional about not bringing all of my work home, right? It's so easy to bring the work home and have my face in the computer and realize like, I ain't even really talked to my kids today. Like, yeah, I got up, I took them to school, I picked them up, and, you know, the mentoring program picked them up. But making sure that we're giving our kids some attention and that we're paying attention to them because their mental health matters. And so they're experiencing things with social media that we didn't have to experience growing up. And I'm finding out that a large percentage of children are cutters. I'm finding this out through children that come to the church, live in the community. And I went through it with my oldest when she was in high school, that the ways in which they deal with their pain is to cut on their arms, right? And so I remember as a parent feeling like a failure because I didn't pay attention to the fact that this child is wearing a hoodie all the time because there's cuts on her arm. And as a parent, I'm so busy because I'm trying to build and get us out of poverty into middle class, right? And mommy's doing all these wonderful things, and mommy's so busy and she's not paying attention to her child. And so as parents, I say make sure that we're just slowing down to do a body scan. Do a scan. Every now and then you do gotta grab that phone and take a look at it. So yeah, I'm probably getting off topic, but sometimes we have to slow down, and we have to really, and I even myself sometimes can be so busy that I'm not giving the amount of care and personal attention that they need. We can be so busy building a life for them that we forget to do life with them on a very intentional and intimate level.
Well, so much, I think, has been said, so many poignant points. At the end of the day, certainly parents have to be there for their children. You know, we want fathers to be better, and we try to get each and every one that we work with to step up. We've worked with, more than 24,000 men over the last 32
Wow.
years. And, so just one at a time, as they say, each one teach one. And so I'm just, honored and humbled to be able to lead an organization that focuses on helping fathers to be better.
Yeah.
See, I told you you'd be a good guest for this podcast.
Thank you. I wasn't sure I'd have much to give. I was like, are you sure?
Yeah, the insight is so good because not only is it just truth and it's wisdom, but you're not in an ivory tower. This is something we can use. This is practical stuff we can use on the daily, right?
And I'll just say lastly, fathers, that God can redeem the time, even if you have lost a lot of time with your kids. My father died 2 years ago, but he was so grateful for how much his kids loved him because he spent so much time in penitentiary. And but we still all ended up being so close with our dad because once he did, get out, and we just all became best of friends. And I'm a daddy's girl. And when people would see our relationship with our dad, you would never know that he was gone for the majority of our childhood. Because in adulthood, God still redeemed the time and birthed something so beautiful with him and us as adults, even though he didn't raise us as children, because he was locked up for majority of the time. And so I will just say that for any fathers that may be struggling, feeling like they have failed their children or like they've been out of their lives for too long, if you still have breath in your body, you still got time to rebuild and build a bridge to that relationship and do the best that you can and let God come in and do some mending and some healing, because God can redeem the time and something beautiful can still happen be birthed from brokenness. So those will be my last words.
Beautiful. God can redeem the time. I mean, it takes work, obviously, right? You don't just wake up, okay.
It does.
But God can redeem that time. And what a blessed thought that is.
Thank you.
So generous to share this time with us, Pastor. I know that a lot of what Larry and I both have talked about is that mission of fathers and families, of redeeming that time. Yes, being the father that we did not have for our own father, maybe. And that's, breaking those cycles, just coming alongside other dads who were trying to do their best.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all for having me.
Thanks for listening to Daddy Issues, a podcast from Fathers and Families Center of Indianapolis, Indiana. Be sure to follow us and stay connected on Instagram and Facebook. For more information about the programs of Fathers and Families Center, visit ffcindiana.org.